Well, hello everybody. I'm Hal,
And I'm Melanie.
and we want to welcome you to another episode of Making Biblical Family Life Practical.
And one of the center points of making biblical family life practical is our marriages. And today we have a special guest, our dear friends, Roger and Jan Smith. Roger is the author of Parenting with Influence, and they are speakers like we are. And how long have you guys been married?
We just passed the 43-year mark, so 43
Awesome.
years born. We were married in 1980, so.
And we are about to celebrate our 37th.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
So we got two old married couples here.
Yeah.
You know, what I would like for us to talk about today is, what does a healthy marriage look like? And I want not big philosophical stuff, but let's talk about just characteristics, little things that make a big difference. Let's talk about, what does a healthy marriage look like day to day?
I think it's a good idea to make a list of things that you respected about your spouse and what drew you to them, so that on the days when you're not healthy, you can pull out that list and go, these are all the things that I loved about this person that I'm married to, because not every day is going to be a good day. But I think the mutual respect that Roger and I had for one another, that it was based on a real friendship.
You know, I love that you say that, because doing that saved one of my dear friends' marriages. They had gotten in a really ugly place, and I asked her I said, tell me 10 things you love and respect about him, and she said, nothing. I said, well, list 5 things you loved and respected about him when you got married, because surely you loved him or you wouldn't have gotten married. And I said, I want you to tell him about those things one at a time over the next week. When she started expressing the things she loved about him, it changed their marriage.
Well, it reminded him of the man that he had been and had gotten away from, and their relationship had become rocky during that transition. So looking back to say, hey, where did we intend to be? Where did we start from that was a much better place? How do we get back there? And that's a good thing, to say, to remember, why were you attracted to one another to begin with?
Well, I know we have loved helping our kids get ready for marriage, because it's brought up lots of memories of when we were getting ready for marriage, and helped us to remember those fun feelings and the things that were going on. And so I think remembering where you came from is a good thing.
Roger, you were giving an illustration of the process of going along in a marriage, and I think that was pretty powerful. Can you bring that back out for our listeners?
Yeah, we come to the marriage kind of like railroad tracks or tire tracks on a road, and marriage is so much more than just running parallel and staying near one another. But at some point, unlike tire tracks or railroad tracks, we got to have some connecting points, and sometimes we have to plan those. We have to look for ways to be connected, whether it's through doing projects together, whether we read a book together, or even watching a movie is sometimes a connecting point, but you're not really aggressively pursuing one another. You just have a memory together.
Not unless you're like the Youngs who talk all the way through the movies.
Sounds like I don't need to watch a movie with you.
Jan likes watching movies with me, don't you, Jan?
Actually, that was on our 1-month anniversary. That was our first fight. We went to a movie we married at 19 and 20. We were in college.
Yeah.
And so that was our first fight. I said something in the movie, and he said, be quiet.
There are
and it
other
embarrassed
people here.
him. And so until later, when he went to a movie with all my sisters, did he realize I had really been quiet for 3/4 of the movie before I said one comment. So anyway, we had fun making up that night. But it was...
But we do, getting back to the tire tracks thing, there are a lot of different ways that we can find connecting points, whether it's hobbies or projects, doing things with the kids, doing things for fun, sitting on the back porch and looking at the stars, just finding a few moments and planning for times for us to connect over something besides conflict. Yes. Conflict is normal. It happens. We can focus on the conflict, or we can focus on building a connection. And so it's better to focus on those positive things.
And it doesn't have to be anything big.
Right.
Like we were talking earlier, it can be going to the store together, going shopping for groceries together. Just choosing to be together rather than apart, choosing to talk rather than shut up inside yourself.
One thing that I challenge husbands to do is whenever they go publicly with their wives is to hold her hand. And something as simple as walking into a building or across a parking lot, holding your spouse's hand can do lots of good things for your relationship. And it's physically connecting as well, not just in the sexual relationship, but in those respect, tenderness, kindness. So as simple as holding your hand, that seemed real exciting when we were dating, and we forget
Right.
that it's important,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah, it
important in all stages of our marriage. So we've been married for 43 years, and I still will reach out for her hand, and she always appreciates that. So it's things like that we look for ways to stay connected and not just running parallel lives and be just simply roommates in this enterprise of life.
Yeah, you can't be roommates or colleagues or coworkers. That's not enough.
It's not
Well, I mean, I think we've all seen it in older couples where, I used to see it when we were in the military, that you could see the retired couples coming into the commissary on base, and you could just sense the tension between the wife and her retired naval officer husband, that they had spent most of their marriage separated, literally. And so now he's at home and they don't have that connection. It's just like he's an interference in her management of the home, or she, he doesn't know the woman that he married because he was married to the Navy for so long. And, I think what you said is that's a really important thing. It doesn't have to be. In fact, it really shouldn't be just the big things.
Yeah.
But just making eye contact,
Yes.
it's remarkable how easily we forget to make eye contact with people because we're so distracted. We're so distracted, and we distract ourselves even with good things.
Yeah, or we're staring at our phone.
Yeah.
And what do our eyes communicate when we look at one another? Do we communicate desire and love and affection for that spouse? Do our children see that in our
Yes.
eyes? When we look at one another, or do they see daggers or anger or
Well,
frustration?
And, looking at somebody's eyes can tell you when you've got a problem.
Yeah.
I know our kids don't think we have any conflict at all. You were laughing that your kids said the same thing. Are you qualified to talk about conflict? Y'all don't have conflict. We do have conflict, and so do you, but we try to catch it when it's really, really small. If I see that hurt feeling come in Hal's eyes or annoyance come in Hal's eyes, I'm like, uh-oh, what's wrong? I want to make it right immediately. And so when conflict dealt with when it's small never becomes big and nasty.
Well, you told a story on yourselves, and I hope you don't mind me bringing this out, but you had someone working in the house here one day when one of you made a mistake or an omission and brought it to the other's attention. And
You have to tell more of the story. People don't understand it.
Well,
Jan, I think you had forgotten to mail a bill that Roger had asked you to mail.
It was a package.
Yes.
okay.
And Roger said, Jan, I really needed you to mail that. And he sounded just a tiny bit annoyed. And you immediately said, oh no, I am so sorry. I meant to do this and I forgot. I'm going to take it right now. And you grabbed the package and grabbed your keys and went out the door.
And the person that was here working was just astounded that nobody slammed a door, nobody raised their voice, there were no recriminations. It was like, you could just resolve things?
Because see, Helen and I were here with the lady that was cleaning your house. And she was just like, I've never seen anything like that. Did you see that? What in the world? She was stunned that y'all could resolve that conflict and move on without having a big ugly fight.
Well, it's rooted in the position that we've chosen to adopt, and it's that we believe the best in one another. And so if when folks have a lot of baggage, it's hard to get to that point, but you can get there to where I trusted that Jan fully intended to be responsible for the thing that I asked her to do that was important to me.
Right.
And I didn't take it personally. I didn't take it as a slam that she didn't respect me or didn't, it was, so I believed the best. And where we can believe the best in one another, the mistakes remain small.
Yes.
When we don't believe the best, we magnify, as they say, make a mountain out of a molehill.
Yes.
And so
we start making it into a whole character issue. I can't
that's
trust
right.
you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, it just puts feet on on that 1 Corinthians 13 passage that says that love believes all things.
Yes.
And it bears all things.
Right.
That when we
Hopes
love each
all
other, it hopes all things, that we mean the best toward one another. And in the day-to-day aggravations, if we're already aggravated with the children, it's easy to snap at our husband instead of believing that we're partnering together on things, that it's just really important for us to maintain as of the highest importance, that marriage relationship. That I know that I work with a lot of young moms right now in my life, and I remember now how hard it was to have 3 little ones
On
clinging
you
to
all the time.
They are very physically demanding.
Touched out by the end of the day.
That's right. And yet that is such an important part of a relationship, from newlyweds trying to figure it all out together to people that have been married for 40 years like Roger and I, that it's that physical relationship that God intended it for our good.
Yes.
From the beginning to the end. And I feel like that is worth making a priority, because Satan can get a wedge in there and think that he just doesn't like me anymore. He doesn't want me. And he's trying to be sensitive that maybe she's tired and frustrated. And it's so easy to get our wires crossed in that intimacy communication. And I think it's important. It's important to work on it. Roger and I are always working on just stopping to kiss one another, to do,
Yes.
a 30-second kiss.
Yes.
That used to, that was just such an exciting thing, but it's still an important thing after 40 years.
Even when you're really busy and you've kissed a million times.
That's right. And even when it's not leading to sex.
Yes.
Just-
especially.
That's right. Just, I
Especially.
love you and I care.
Yeah.
Some of the big issues.
And a little more than just a peck.
Yes.
More than a peck. Thank you. Yes. More than a peck, but not let's go to bed.
Yes.
Submission is another issue like that I think that can get out of whack, that should be a non-issue, because if submission is a big issue in your marriage,
Then you got
something's
deeper
wrong.
problems.
That's right.
You got
Something's
deeper
wrong.
problems because, it's almost, I can't remember a time it's ever been an issue in our marriage, because we make sure we're in agreement about stuff. Hal loves me so much. He values my opinion. I love him so much. I am grateful he's leading our family, that, I don't know, if it's getting to the point that people are having to lay down the law, then you're not listening to each other, you know?
Well, you were saying before we started the recording, Roger, that we're all familiar with the passage in Ephesians 5, and people grab onto the submission verse, but they don't seem to remember that it says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and did what? And gave himself for her. It's like, wife, submit to your husband. Husband, Jesus died for the church. Are you willing to die for your wife?
Yeah, and so I ask people oftentimes whenever we get to this point where it says, and Jesus died for the church, and say, okay, well, let's say, where did he love the church in other ways besides his death? And if we get people to stop and think and characterize, what was Jesus' love like?
Yes.
That's right.
And he is our model. And
take into consideration, how has the church acted?
Yeah.
Has the church always been perfectly lovable?
That's right.
No.
And did
No.
he wait until the church was worthy of his love?
No, and he didn't storm around saying, it's my way or the highway. Oh, you messed up. Boom. No, that's not the way he's dealt with his bride.
This is something you are fantastic at. You are absolutely fantastic at. Y'all, so Hal's birthday was recently, and we have a tradition in our family that everybody at the celebration, and the ones away too, share something they love or respect about the
We
person
do
who's
that,
being honored.
yeah.
And everybody, they mentioned different things, but everybody mentioned, Dad is the most self-sacrificial person I have ever met. It's hard to even get him to voice an opinion sometimes about what he wants, because he's always, well, what do you want? And, it's not hard to follow him in like that, y'all. because I know he has mine and our kids' best interest at heart all the time.
Well, okay. Now, one thing that's been mentioned already, and I think this is a key to an awful lot of this, is communication. And we
Yes.
can talk for hours and hours about that. But what would you say is the number one, the simplest advice that you can give on building a good communication culture between a couple? Can you boil it down?
Roger always talks about a husband being a student of his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And I think starting from a place of understanding, in First Peter it says that husbands are to live with their wives in an understanding way.
Yes.
And we think that incorporates understanding their temperament, their personality, their time clock. Are they a morning person or are they a night person?
Mm-hmm.
So I think all of that affects communication, because if he tried to talk with me at 10:30 at night, that would not be a wise choice. I'm
Or
a morning
6:30
person.
in the morning for me.
Or the same for him. Yeah, that he, that's not a time that I need to try to talk to him. So understanding what it is about that person that is important to them and how they think and how they work, I think is a key to communication.
That verse, Hal pointed something out recently, that verse says, live with your wife in an understanding way that your prayers may not be hindered. That's pretty serious.
That is pretty serious.
But if you don't live with your wife in an understanding way, your prayers are going to be hindered?
Well, I know one thing. If things are not well between us, I don't want to pray. Yeah. So they be hindered in a lot of different ways, you know. So, but it's serious, is what it is.
It
I
is
was
very
not
serious.
impressed with your view of male leadership, sir. Yeah. Wow.
So, I love one of the statements that says, in any other endeavor in life, whether it's golf or work or whatever, you don't expect automatic success. You expect to have to work to get better at it. But somehow we have this idea that marriage should be automatic. And and we do not put in the work to understand one another. It does take work for me to be a student of my wife, to know her, to know what makes her tick, and know what's a good time to talk to her, and know whenever she reacts emotionally to something, what that really means and what is the background to that. And, so it's something that we learn one another more and more over time. And we shouldn't use that knowledge as a weapon.
Right.
Never.
It should be a tool to help us to communicate more effectively. So in regard to the biological clock Jan mentioned, Jan's eyes open and her brain has even started in hyperspeed before her foot touches the floor. But I'm a slow starter, and so she's always rattling off these lists of to-do things for the day, and I say, Jan, please, I'm very interested. I try to make this
Yeah.
I'm interested in what needs to be done. If you could write that list down, that would be better for me. So don't give me the machine gun verbal approach before 9 o'clock in the morning. But I had to respectfully appeal for that. So all of those things come into to play is that, and we value that. At first she thought that my slow start was kind of a moral failure. That somehow it was bad character on my part. But I just can't get my motor running.
Right.
Right. And so we learn to appreciate those things in one another and be okay with it.
We have something very similar. I have a hard time shutting down at night, and I have insomnia. And if we talk about business stuff late at night, I cannot sleep. I will toss and turn all night.
And the business may just be the business of the family. Like, well, we've got a doctor's appointment tomorrow. Don't forget we need to do blah, blah, blah.
And then
anything-
then my sleep is destroyed.
Real life is not on the agenda after 10 p.m.
So we have a rule after 10 p.m. You do not talk to Melanie about anything involving real life. Fiction, you can talk about fictional characters,
Yeah.
but nothing. You tell me about the book, the mystery story you're reading, but nothing real life after 10 p.m.
And sometimes she'll say, Al, what time is it? And I say, oh, I'm sorry. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But see, I've had to kind of turn the thing around because I'm more like you, Roger. And I like to get up in the morning and kind of take my time getting ready and get that second or third cup of coffee going
And-
and rest. And I had to say, Melanie, you don't want me to talk about real life after 10 p.m. I don't want to talk about it before 10 a.m.
Yes, because I wake up and my brain is in full gear. I open my eyes and I'm immediately looking at the agenda for the day. And poor Hal, he'll say, sometimes I'm just rattling up and he'll say, "Good morning, honey." And I'll go, oh, I'm sorry. Good morning, Hal.
And that is a code language.
That's
we
code
all
language.
we all have code languages.
Yes.
Yes.
Or we should. Sometimes
Yes.
we need words that unoffensively say, "I've had enough."
Yes.
And we need a pause here.
Yeah.
It is not that I don't care. So
Right.
it's just so over time, hopefully, people can develop some type of comical code word that says, "Not now, honey."
Not now, honey. I care, but not
And
now.
I think that's what the scriptures talk about when it says, accept one another
Mhm.
as Christ accepted us. Because we are all created. Those things
Yeah.
are a part of who we are
Yes.
and have been since we were born. So we were created in those ways. And that as we learn to accept one another, that's such a precious part of a healthy marriage of, we take the good, the bad, and the ugly.
And I'll
And
love
some
you no matter
things,
what.
yeah, and some things it's not a good or a bad, it's just a difference.
Yes.
It's a difference. Roger couldn't accept the fact that when we got married, he just thought if I stood up straight and held my toothbrush right, that I would not froth and spew, because
When you brush your teeth.
when I brushed my teeth, yes. But he learned there really was no way.
Yes.
I just produced a different volume of slava
And
or
that in
something.
the, and then in the end, that part didn't really matter. I just didn't have to watch.
That's right.
There you go. There you go. I tell you, y'all are a joy.
We could
Oh,
talk all day. I want to tell people
Uh,
Roger and Jan do fantastic marriage retreats. They're available to come talk to your church. They can contact you at
RogerSmithMD.com.
RogerSmithMD.com.
And there is the speaker contact tab on there. So if someone has an interest in us coming to an event, short or long, we do, multi-day events or 1 or 2 hours. And so you can contact us there, RogerSmithMD.com.
Hal and I also do marriage retreats and marriage weekends for churches, and you can find our speaking contact at halandmelanie.com. And we'd love to do one together sometime. Wouldn't that be a
fun?
blast? We'd have so
I would
much
love
fun.
that, yeah.
All right. Well, looks like our time is about up. So we just want to thank Roger and Jan for being on the show with us today. It's always a pleasure talking with you. And until next time, I'm Hal.
And I'm Melanie.
And we hope you'll join us again as we take biblical principles into the 21st century family. So thanks for joining us this time.
Bye, y'all.
You've been listening to Making Biblical Family Life Practical with Hal and Melanie Young. If you found this program interesting, challenging, and encouraging, why not join us on the web at halandmelanie.com. That's HALANDMELANIE.com. Or follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook at Facebook/Hal and Melanie or Facebook.com/Raising Real Men. This program is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network. Join us next week when we'll be back to talk about making biblical family life practical. Until then, thank you and God bless you for listening.